The stars burned cold in the void when the Kethmori ship, Luminous Dawn, suffered catastrophic engine failure. Captain Zarath watched helplessly as warning lights painted her bridge in crimson panic. The quantum drives had overloaded during their desperate escape from the Devourers, those nightmarish creatures that consumed entire star systems. "Navigation is gone," reported her chief officer, his forearms trembling as he worked the damaged controls. "We're being pulled toward an unknown gravity well." Through the viewport, a blue-green planet grew larger. The ship's computer managed one last scan before dying completely. The readout showed a world teeming with life, but the dominant species registered as primitive. Stone tools, basic agriculture, no spaceflight capability. "At least they won't shoot us down," Zarath muttered, preparing for impact. The Luminous Dawn screamed through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. It was the year 1347 by human reckoning, though the refugees had no way of knowing this. The ship crashed into a remote mountain valley in what would one day be called the Swiss Alps, carving a deep scar in the earth and triggering avalanches that sealed the crash site from curious human eyes. 43 Kethmori survived the crash. They were tall, graceful beings with translucent skin that shifted color with their emotions, and they possessed technology that seemed like magic to medieval humans. But their advanced civilization meant nothing now. They were stranded on a primitive world with no way to call for help. Zarath gathered her surviving crew in the ship's central chamber. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the buckled walls. "Our long-range communications are destroyed," she announced. "The ship will never fly again. We're refugees now." Her people looked at her with large, luminous eyes that cycled through colors of despair. They had fled their homeworld just ahead of the Devourer swarm, watching helplessly as their beautiful crystal cities were consumed. Now they faced a slower death on this alien world. "What about the natives?" asked Dr. Veltar, the expedition's xenobiologist. "The scans showed intelligent life." "Primitive," Zarath replied. "They might help us, or they might kill us out of fear. We'll have to be careful." The Kethmori spent their first weeks hidden in the wreckage, using their remaining technology to create a livable space inside the ship. They survived on emergency rations and water filtered from mountain streams. But food was running low, and winter was coming. It was young Nimber who first made contact with humans. The eager apprentice engineer had been exploring outside the crash site when he encountered a human hunting party. The medieval hunters took one look at his shifting, translucent skin and strange clothing and fled screaming about demons. Word spread quickly through the local villages. Some humans wanted to organize a holy war against the demons. Others insisted they were angels sent by God. A few brave souls suggested they might simply be travelers from distant lands. Brother Marcus, a scholarly monk from the nearby monastery, convinced the local lord to approach the strangers peacefully. "If they are demons, God will protect us," he reasoned. "If they are not, then we risk committing a great sin through violence." The first meeting between Kethmori and humans took place on neutral ground, a small meadow halfway between the crash site and the village. Zarath came with only 2 guards, while Lord Heinrich brought a dozen knights and the monk. The language barrier proved challenging until Dr. Veltar activated a universal translator salvaged from the ship. The device was damaged and could only translate simple concepts, but it was enough. "We are travelers," Zarath explained carefully. "Our ship is broken. We need help." Brother Marcus stepped forward, his monk's robes rustling in the mountain wind. "Are you angels? Demons? What manner of beings are you?" "We are people like you," she replied, though the translator struggled with the concept. "We come from the sky." "But we are not gods," the humans whispered among themselves. Some crossed themselves and muttered prayers. But slowly, cautiously, a dialogue began. Dr. Veltar was fascinated by human biology and culture. Despite their primitive technology, humans showed remarkable adaptability and creativity. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars through sheer determination. "They're incredibly resilient," he reported to Zarath after several weeks of careful study. "Their immune systems are more robust than ours. They can eat foods that would poison us. And their mental flexibility is extraordinary." The Kethmori began sharing small gifts with the humans. Simple devices that purified water or provided light without fire. In return, the humans offered food, shelter, and protection from other human groups who might prove hostile. A fragile peace developed. The Kethmori learned to speak crude Latin and the local Germanic dialects. They helped the humans with their farming, using knowledge of soil chemistry and plant biology to increase crop yields. In winter, their heating devices kept the monastery warm, and their medical knowledge helped treat diseases that would have killed many villagers. Brother Marcus spent hours learning about Kethmori culture and technology. He was particularly fascinated by their history and their flight from the Devourers. "These creatures you fled from," he said one evening as snow fell outside the monastery. "Tell me more about them." Zarath's skin shifted to deep purple, the color of fear and sorrow. "They are not like anything in your world, good brother. They consume everything, not just life, but the very matter and energy of worlds. They leave behind nothing but empty space. And they pursue you? They pursue all life. We thought distance would save us, but they are relentless. They follow the quantum signatures of advanced technology across the galaxy." Brother Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter cold. "Could they find you here?" Zarath's silence was answer enough. As months passed, the relationship between the refugees and their human hosts grew stronger. The Kethmori taught humans about agriculture, medicine, and engineering principles that wouldn't be discovered by human science for centuries. In return, humans shared their own knowledge of survival, warfare, and social organization. Young Nimbur became particularly close to a group of human apprentices at the monastery. They were fascinated by his technical knowledge and helped him understand human culture. Through them, he learned about human concepts of honor, sacrifice, and loyalty. "Your people are strange," he told Brother Marcus one day while repairing a water mill with significantly improved efficiency. "You are weak individually, but together you become something greater than the sum of your parts." "God works through community," the monk replied. "Perhaps that is why he brought you to us." But peace was not to last. In the spring of their second year on Earth, the sky began to change. Stars flickered and went out one by one. A darkness spread across the heavens that had nothing to do with clouds or eclipse. Dr. Veltar confirmed their worst fears. His instruments, cobbled together from ship salvage and medieval materials, detected the unmistakable quantum signature of Devourer scouts, probing the outer edges of the solar system. "They've found us," Zarath announced to her people and their human allies. "The Devourers are coming." Lord Heinrich listened grimly as the situation was explained through the translator. "How long do we have?" "Months, perhaps a year before the main swarm arrives," Veltar estimated. "The scouts will map the system first, catalog all life-bearing worlds. Then we fight," the Lord declared simply. Zarath's skin cycled through colors of amazement and disbelief. "You don't understand. The Devourers destroyed star-spanning civilizations with weapons that could crack planets. You have swords and arrows." "Then we'll die with swords and arrows in our hands," Brother Marcus said quietly. "It's better than living as slaves." The Kethmori had seen 100 worlds surrender to the Devourers, hoping for mercy that never came. They had seen advanced civilizations fall despite weapons and defenses far beyond anything Earth could muster. The idea that these primitive humans would choose to fight rather than flee or surrender was both admirable and tragic. But as they prepared for what seemed like inevitable extinction, something unexpected began to happen. The humans started asking questions, not about surrender or escape, but about the devourers themselves. "How do they fight?" asked Sir Wilhelm, Lord Heinrich's best knight. "What are their strengths, their weaknesses?" "They have no weaknesses," Zarath protested. "We've studied them for centuries." "Everything has weaknesses," Brother Marcus said firmly. "Even evil itself. We simply haven't found them yet." As summer approached and the darkness in the sky grew more pronounced, humans throughout the region began to prepare for war. But it was unlike any preparation the Keth Mori had ever seen. Instead of simply building weapons, the humans were building something else entirely, a unified resistance that crossed all traditional boundaries. Lords who had been enemies for generations put aside their feuds. Peasants and nobles trained together, monks copied and distributed every scrap of knowledge about the devourers that the Keth Mori could provide. Messages went out to distant kingdoms, spreading word of the coming threat. The Keth Mori watched in growing amazement as humanity began to do something no other species had ever attempted. Instead of fleeing from the devourers or waiting helplessly for rescue, they were actively preparing to resist creatures that had consumed star empires. "They're going to get themselves killed," Nimber said sadly, as he watched human warriors practice with crude weapons enhanced by Keth Mori technology. "Perhaps," Dr. Veltar replied. "But they're going to make the devourers work for it." As autumn arrived and the first devourer ships appeared in the outer solar system, neither the refugees nor their hosts could imagine what was about to unfold. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of all life in the galaxy. The first devourer probe descended through Earth's atmosphere like a black teardrop, its surface absorbing light itself. It landed in a field outside Paris, and within hours, everything within a mile radius was gone. Not destroyed, not killed, but simply erased from existence, leaving behind a perfect sphere of nothingness. Brother Marcus stood with Zarath on the monastery walls, watching the distant glow where London had been just yesterday. Now there was only empty space where England's greatest city had stood. "How many lived there?" the monk asked quietly. "Perhaps 50,000, Zarath replied, her skin a deep gray of mourning. "They died without pain, at least. The devourers unmake matter at the quantum level. It's instantaneous. And this is just the beginning? The probes test defenses and catalog biomass. The main swarm will arrive soon to harvest everything." Across Europe, the pattern repeated. Rome, Constantinople, Prague. Great cities vanished overnight, leaving perfect voids in the landscape. But something unprecedented was happening in response. Instead of panicking or surrendering, humans were adapting. Lord Heinrich had established communication networks using both Keth Mori technology and human ingenuity. Riders carried messages between kingdoms at breakneck speed. Smoke signals and bell towers relayed warnings across vast distances. When a devourer probe appeared, entire regions evacuated in coordinated waves. "They're learning," Dr. Veltar observed with growing amazement. "They study each attack, identify patterns, adjust their responses. No other species has ever done this." The humans had discovered that devourer probes followed predictable patterns. They targeted large concentrations of life first, worked outward in expanding circles, and couldn't function properly in areas with specific mineral compositions. Medieval alchemists, working with Keth Mori scientists, identified compounds that could create interference fields. Young Nimber found himself at the center of a technological revolution. Human craftsmen proved remarkably adept at reproducing Keth Mori devices using medieval materials. They couldn't create quantum computers, but they could make interference generators using copper wire and specially treated crystals. "Your species is remarkable," he told his friend Thomas, a blacksmith's apprentice who had learned to forge crude but effective force field generators. "You see something once and immediately find 3 ways to improve it. My master says every problem is just a nail that needs the right hammer," Thomas replied, adjusting the resonance frequency of his latest creation. As winter deepened, the Devourer main fleet arrived. Massive ships emerged from hyperspace like malignant stars, their presence warping local space-time. Each vessel was miles long, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The Kethmori refugees gathered in their hidden chamber, monitoring the invasion through their remaining sensors. They had seen this scene play out across 100 worlds. First came the probes, then the fleet, then systematic consumption of all life, until nothing remained but empty rock. "It's over," whispered Captain Zarath. "I'm sorry we brought this curse upon your world." But Brother Marcus was studying the tactical displays with intense focus. "Show me their deployment pattern again." "What's the point?" Zarath asked wearily. "We cannot fight them." "Perhaps not," the monk replied, "but we can make them make mistakes." The human response to the main invasion was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Instead of massing their forces for a conventional battle, they scattered into small mobile units. Guerrilla warfare on a planetary scale, but coordinated with precision that amazed even the technologically advanced Kethmori. Using a combination of medieval organization and alien technology, humans created a resistance network that spanned continents. Monasteries became communication hubs. Knights carried portable Kethmori devices alongside their swords. Peasants learned to recognize Devourer signatures and relay warnings faster than the alien ships could move. The first major surprise came when a Devourer harvesting ship landed near Venice. The city had been evacuated, but the humans had left behind something unexpected: a trap. They had learned that Devourer ships drew power by converting local matter into energy. The humans flooded the area around Venice with iron oxide mixed with specially treated salt compounds, creating a reaction that overloaded the ship's conversion systems. For the first time in recorded history, a Devourer vessel was damaged by primitive technology. "Impossible," Dr. Veltar muttered as his instruments registered the event. The explosion barely scratched their hull, but the quantum feedback disrupted their harvesting systems. "How did they know to do that?" Zarath demanded. Brother Marcus smiled grimly. "Brother Gregory studied natural philosophy at the University of Paris before joining our order. He theorized that if the creatures convert matter to energy, they might be vulnerable to matter that converts too quickly." Across the planet, similar traps began appearing. Humans lured Devourer ships to specific locations where they triggered carefully prepared resonance cascades, electromagnetic pulses, and chemical reactions that interfered with alien systems. None of the attacks destroyed Devourer ships outright, but they accumulated damage and created operational problems. More importantly, they forced the Devourers to adapt their tactics. "They're becoming cautious," observed Nimber as he helped decode intercepted alien communications. "They're scanning areas more thoroughly before landing, avoiding obvious trap sites." "Which means they're thinking defensively instead of offensively," Sir Wilhelm noted. The knight had become an expert in Devourer behavior patterns. "In war, when you start reacting instead of acting, you're already losing." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sister Catherine, a nun who had been studying Kethmori mathematics, made a connection that had eluded both human scholars and alien scientists. "The Devourers aren't individuals," she announced during a council of war. "They're a distributed consciousness like a hive mind, but spread across quantum space." Dr. Veltar initially dismissed the idea. "Quantum consciousness is theoretical even for our science." "But look at the evidence," Sister Catherine insisted, spreading her calculations across the monastery's great table. They never make independent decisions. Their ships move in perfect coordination across vast distances, and they always know when one of their units is damaged. If the nun was correct, the implications were staggering. The Devourers weren't just an alien fleet. They were a single, vast intelligence that treated individual ships like fingers on a hand. "How does this help us?" Lord Heinrich asked pragmatically. "If they share consciousness across quantum space," Brother Marcus mused, "then disrupting that connection might create confusion in their entire network." Working feverishly, Kethemori scientists and human scholars developed a new type of interference device. It used principles from both cultures: alien quantum theory combined with human understanding of harmonic resonance. The first test took place during a Devourer assault on the empty ruins of Florence. Hidden operators activated the experimental device just as the alien ships began their harvesting sequence. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Devourer ships stopped moving in perfect unison. Some continued their harvest while others began attacking empty ground. Two vessels actually collided with each other, the first time such a thing had been recorded. "It's working!" Nimber shouted, watching his instruments register quantum static across multiple frequencies. "We're jamming their shared consciousness." The success came at a price. The quantum interference affected Kethemori technology as well, cutting the refugees off from their remaining advanced systems. But the humans had expected this and prepared accordingly. "We fight with swords and fire now," declared Sir Wilhelm, raising his blade, "just like our ancestors." What followed was the strangest siege in galactic history. Humans used medieval tactics enhanced by captured alien technology to harass and confuse an interstellar invasion force. They struck at landing sites, destroyed supply lines that existed in hyperspace, and turned the Devourer's own quantum communication system against them. The aliens tried to adapt, but they had never faced an enemy that combined primitive determination with stolen advanced knowledge. Every tactical adjustment they made was countered by human creativity and Kethemori technical expertise. "They're stalling," observed Captain Zarath as she studied tactical reports from across the planet. "The Devourers aren't advancing their harvest schedule. They're being forced to secure each position before moving forward." "Is that good or bad for us?" asked Thomas, who had been promoted to chief engineer despite being barely 16 years old. "It's unprecedented," Dr. Veltar replied. "The Devourers have never taken more than a few months to consume a world. They've been here almost a year and harvested less than 5% of the planet's biomass. But winter was ending, and spring brought troubling news. The Devourers were calling for reinforcements. Long-range sensors detected new ships arriving from deep space. Not just more of the same vessels, but specialized craft designed for stubborn resistance. Planet crackers that could split worlds open. Quantum disruptors that could unravel matter at the subatomic level. "They're bringing the siege breakers," Zarath announced grimly. "Ships designed to end resistance permanently." The humans received this news with characteristic determination. "Then we'll break their siege breakers," Brother Marcus replied calmly. "With what?" Zarath demanded. "You've seen what they can do to planets." "With whatever we have," the monk answered, "and with whatever we can imagine." As reports arrived of the new Devourer fleet's approach, humans across the planet began their most ambitious project yet. They were going to do something that no civilization in galactic history had ever attempted. They were going to take the fight to the Devourer's home fleet. "This is madness," protested Dr. Veltar when he learned of the plan. "You can't attack spaceships with medieval technology." "Not medieval," corrected Nimber, his young face bright with excitement. "Human technology enhanced by everything we've learned together." The plan was audacious beyond belief. Using principles learned from studying crashed Devourer probes, human craftsmen and Kethemori engineers had constructed something that shouldn't exist, a quantum catapult capable of launching modified siege engines into space. "It won't destroy their fleet," admitted Brother Gregory, the natural philosopher turned military engineer. "But it doesn't need to. We just need to damage their quantum communication network badly enough to cause permanent disruption." As spring turned towards summer and the siege-breaker fleet approached Earth's orbit, humans and Kethmori worked together on their impossible weapon. They had one chance to prove that determination and creativity could triumph over technological superiority. The stage was set for humanity's first space battle, fought with weapons that combined alien science with human ingenuity, medieval courage with quantum physics. The outcome would determine whether Earth became another empty husk in the Devourer's wake, or the first world to successfully resist their cosmic harvest. The Devourer siege-breaker fleet emerged from hyperspace like a constellation of death. Each ship stretched for miles, their crystalline hulls reflecting no light, their presence warping space itself. At their center loomed the command nexus, a massive structure that served as the focal point for the entire Devourer collective consciousness. On Earth below, humans and Kethmori made final preparations for their desperate gambit. The quantum catapult had been built in the ruins of Canterbury Cathedral, its stone arches now supporting impossible technology that bridged medieval engineering with alien science. "The targeting calculations are complete," announced Sister Catherine, her nun's habit stained with metal filings and mathematical ink. "But the margin for error is enormous." Captain Zarath stood beside the human mathematician, her skin cycling through colors of amazement and terror. "You're attempting to hit a moving target in space using calculations performed by hand and launched with a device that shouldn't exist." "Brother Marcus says God helps those who help themselves," replied Thomas the blacksmith, adjusting the quantum resonance chambers one final time. "We're certainly helping ourselves today." The catapult itself was a marvel of combined ingenuity. Its base was constructed from cathedral stones arranged in precise geometric patterns that channeled quantum energy. The launch mechanism used principles from both trebuchet design and Kethmori gravity manipulation. The projectiles were equally impossible. Siege stones carved from meteoric iron and inscribed with mathematical formulae that would destabilize Devourer quantum networks. "It's completely mad," muttered Dr. Veltar as he made final adjustments to the targeting array. "We're essentially throwing rocks at spaceships and hoping mathematics will make them work." "Worked for David and Goliath," observed Brother Marcus with a slight smile. Above them, the siege-breaker fleet had begun its final approach. The first wave of Planet Cracker ships moved into bombardment position, their weapons charging to split Earth open and expose its molten core for easy harvesting. Lord Heinrich stood atop the cathedral's remaining tower, coordinating the global resistance through a network of signal fires and Kethmori communication devices. Similar quantum catapults had been constructed at 7 locations worldwide, each aimed at critical points in the Devourer formation. "All stations report ready," he called down to the launch team. "The enemy fleet is in position." Young Nimber had volunteered to operate the primary launch sequence. His understanding of both human determination and Kethmori technology made him uniquely qualified for the task. His 3-fingered hands moved across controls that were part medieval mechanism, part alien science. "Quantum field generators at maximum," he reported. "Targeting locked on the command nexus." The first projectile loaded into the catapult was special. Carved from the heart of a meteorite and inscribed with mathematical proof that proved the impossibility of perfect quantum consciousness, it represented humanity's greatest insight into Devourer weakness. Sister Catherine had discovered that the aliens' shared mind required perfect mathematical harmony to function. Any logical contradiction introduced into their network would cascade through their collective consciousness, creating system-wide confusion. "The mathematics are elegant," she had explained during the planning sessions. "Their minds work like a vast equation. If we introduce a paradox into that equation, the entire system should become unstable. The Siege Stone contained more than mathematical formulae. It held something uniquely human. The concept of free will, expressed in quantum mathematics that the Devourers couldn't comprehend. Their collective consciousness had evolved to think in terms of perfect unity, but humans had given it a puzzle about individual choice that had no solution. "Launch when ready," ordered Brother Marcus. Nimber pressed the activation sequence. Cathedral stones groaned under impossible stresses. Quantum fields twisted reality around the launch chamber. The Siege Stone disappeared in a flash of light that bent space and time. Seconds later, it materialized inside the command nexus, passing through Devourer shields as if they didn't exist. The mathematical paradox it carried spread through the alien network like a virus, causing quantum processors to lock up as they tried to solve an unsolvable problem. Across the fleet, Devourer ships began moving erratically. Some stopped mid-maneuver, others fired weapons at empty space. Two planet crackers turned their weapons on each other, their shared consciousness confused about which was enemy and which was ally. "It's working!" shouted Dr. Veltar, watching his instruments register massive disruption in alien communication networks. Their collective mind is fragmenting. But the Devourers weren't helpless. Individual ships began operating independently, cutting themselves off from the corrupted network. They were less coordinated now, but still enormously dangerous. The second wave of projectiles launched from catapults around the world. These carried different payloads: concentrated interference fields, quantum viruses designed to corrupt alien databases, and simple kinetic warheads aimed at critical ship systems. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Medieval siege engines launched impossible attacks at interstellar warships. Alien vessels tried to target Earth-based weapons they couldn't fully comprehend. Quantum mathematics clashed with human intuition in a conflict that rewrote the laws of warfare. The humans had one crucial advantage: unpredictability. The Devourers had consumed 1,000 civilizations, but all of them had followed logical patterns of resistance. Advanced species built better weapons, organized conventional defenses, or tried to negotiate surrender. None had ever responded to interstellar invasion with modified trebuchets and mathematical philosophy. "They can't adapt to us," observed Sir Wilhelm as he watched Devourer ships struggle to target the catapult sites. "Their tactical systems aren't designed to fight enemies who use impossible weapons." The tide turned when the third wave of projectiles reached their targets. These carried the most dangerous payload of all: human creativity itself, expressed as quantum information patterns that the Keth Mori had helped encode. When the alien ships tried to process this data, their artificial minds encountered something they had never experienced: pure imagination. Human dreams, stories, and artistic visions cascaded through Devourer networks, creating chaos in systems designed for perfect logical order. Ships began behaving in completely irrational ways. Some attempted to harvest empty space, others tried to communicate with asteroids. A few simply stopped functioning entirely, their crews overwhelmed by exposure to human creativity. "Their minds are breaking down," reported Zarath in wonder. "They can't process concepts that don't follow strict logical parameters." The final phase of the battle saw individual Devourer ships trying to retreat, but their navigation systems had been corrupted by human mathematical paradoxes. Some jumped to hyperspace and never emerged. Others materialized partially inside planets or asteroid belts. The command nexus, still struggling with the free will paradox, made a desperate attempt to purge the contamination from its systems. But it was too late. The virus of human creativity had spread too far through their network. In a final act of desperation, the remaining Devourer ships activated their planet cracker weapons, trying to destroy Earth rather than allow the contamination to spread further. But even these weapons had been affected by the quantum chaos. Instead of splitting the planet, the weapons created localized space-time distortions that transported entire regions of Earth to other dimensions, then brought them back moments later. London reappeared exactly where it had been, completely intact. Rome materialized in the sky above Italy before gently settling back into its original location. "They're retreating," announced Nimber, watching the surviving ships flee toward the edge of the solar system. "The entire fleet is withdrawing." But Brother Marcus was studying the long-range sensors with concern. "Where are they going?" Dr. Veltar checked the readings and paled. "They're not retreating. They're quarantining this entire star system. They're going to seal us off from the rest of the galaxy." The implications were staggering. Earth had won the battle, but at the cost of total isolation. The Devourers were constructing quantum barriers around the solar system, ensuring that the contamination of human creativity could never spread to threaten other worlds. "We're trapped," whispered Captain Zarath. "Are we?" asked Brother Marcus quietly. Over the following months, as the Devourers completed their quarantine barriers, something unexpected happened. The barriers themselves began to malfunction, corrupted by the same quantum paradoxes that had defeated the invasion fleet. Human creativity, it turned out, was not something that could be contained. It spread through quantum space like light through crystal, finding ways around every barrier, every logical constraint. Ships from other star systems began receiving strange transmissions that seemed to come from empty space, mathematical proofs that celebrated the beauty of unsolvable problems, stories that made no logical sense but somehow contained profound truths, art that existed as pure information, transforming whatever systems tried to process it. The Devourers had inadvertently created something they had tried desperately to prevent, a way for human influence to reach across the galaxy without physical travel. On Earth, humans and Keth Mori worked together to strengthen these transmissions. They had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that could fight interstellar wars with imagination and mathematics. "We're not trapped," Thomas realized as he watched quantum transmission arrays beam human creativity across the galaxy. "We're broadcasting." Reports began arriving from distant star systems. Devourer ships were experiencing massive system failures when they encountered the human transmissions. Some fleets had simply stopped functioning, their crews unable to process the logical contradictions contained in human art and philosophy. More importantly, other species were learning. Civilizations that had hidden from the Devourers for millennia were studying human techniques, adapting them to their own cultures and technologies. The galaxy was beginning to fight back. "You've done something remarkable," Zarath told Brother Marcus as they stood on the monastery walls, watching stars that no longer flickered with Devourer activity. "You've turned your greatest weakness into your greatest weapon." "What weakness is that?" the monk asked. "You never make sense," she replied, her skin shifting through colors of admiration. "You're completely illogical, utterly unpredictable, and absolutely impossible to understand. It makes you the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The quarantine barriers finally collapsed completely, dissolved by mathematical paradoxes and overwhelmed by human creativity. But by then, it no longer mattered. Earth had become the center of a new kind of galactic civilization, one based not on technological supremacy, but on the power of imagination. The Devourers, faced with an enemy they could never comprehend or defeat, gradually withdrew to the empty spaces between galaxies, leaving behind a universe that was finally learning to dream. Years later, when starships from 100 worlds came to Earth seeking alliance against other cosmic threats, they found humans and Keth Mori working together on projects that defied all known laws of physics and logic. "How do you do it?" asked an ambassador from the Crystal Dominion, watching humans build machines that ran on mathematical poetry. "We don't know," admitted Brother Marcus. Now elderly but still sharp, We just try things and see what works. It was, the ambassador later reported, the most terrifying and inspiring answer anyone had ever given to that question. The refugees had found their new home, and in doing so, had helped Earth become something unprecedented. A world that could defend the galaxy simply by refusing to make sense. The stars burned bright with new possibilities, and somewhere in the cosmic dark, the last devourer ships fled from an enemy they would never understand, beings who fought impossible wars with creativity itself and always seemed to win through sheer, stubborn refusal to give up. Earth had become the thin line between extinction and hope, and it held that line with weapons made of dreams.